Hello, everybody. This is Gynarchy Awakening here. I believe this is going to be my final video, at least for the time being. If I think of anything more, I'll just like add it to the list, maybe make a playlist or two. Um, so, where can a Gynarchy or Gynocentric community or society, where can these things come from? And the last one is it can come from an active effort to develop a gynocentric culture. And this doesn't have to be limited to your personal community. This could just be the online culture as well. So here are some ideas, and I hope that sooner or later, if I find enough gynarchists, we can actually maybe form some kind of agreement, put these into practice. I think that that would be I think that that would be kind of, I think that would help the community. I also think that that would be a way for people to kind of get their voices out there, to sort of express themselves, and so on and so forth. So, I think culture, first we have to think about what is culture and why does culture matter. Why culture matters is culture is often how people express the thoughts and ideas that reinforce the existing systems that they're part of. You can't really separate the culture from either the power structure or the economics, the political life, and so forth. It's all interconnected. And so, like when you compare the U.S. culture to African culture, different African cultures, to Japanese culture, to Chinese culture, to Russian culture, to Romanian culture, if you or to Latin American culture, you find that there are many diverse practices in these cultures, but you'll also see that there are a lot of patterns as well. And culture is really a way of bringing people together. It's a way of adding to social cohesion, not taking away from it. So here are some gynocentric culture ideas that I have brainstormed. By all means, I would love it if you had some of your own. If you have any gynocentric cultural ideas, uh, feel free to leave them in the comments. Feel free to make your own video about them. They're a lot of fun. So the first one is celebrating the birthdays of famous Gynarchist authors, like, for example, Viola Voltairine, via tribute videos, money tribute, or, it could be something else. In other words, you're just celebrating the existence and the works of that person. That's kind of a way of expressing your creativity, your appreciation for how that person has enriched your life and what they have added to your understanding of something. The next one is something called a Gynarchist reading. This is where you read, and I am reading off notes, unfortunately, because this is a little more complex, and I don't want to make a mistake on this. This is where you read a chapter from a Gynarchist book via a live stream or a voice chat, and then when you're done, people give reactions or they discuss ideas from it. This is, again, another way of creating a social activity for different gynarchists so that they can kind of get in a room, get to know things about each other, start to find out like how similar are to these other people. I kind of feel like, the more I interact with a lot of these others, the more I realize how much we have in common. And, that's why I called them my sisters and brothers, because when they open their mouths and talk or when they're typing, there's a lot of the things that they're saying and feeling that I resonate with, and I've either thought or felt that way at some point in my life, or I've had thoughts like that. So the Gynarchist reading is really just an attempt to try to externalize more of those thoughts and feelings in a way that, via a social activity. And a Gynarchist reading is just one aspect of that social activity. And of course, when you keep doing this, and you keep having people interact with each other, well, sooner or later they get to know each other. They build personal relationships, and personal relationships are the foundation of your society. It's how a community is formed. If you don't have personal relationships, if you don't have friendships, then you really don't have a sense of community. So it starts with strengthening those bonds. All right. So the next one, this is something I've been trying to find somebody who's willing to do. If nobody does it, I'll probably end up writing about it myself. But more literature from submissive men about being submissive. It's a sad truth, but some men who are on the fence may not listen to women. I've had my a previous dominant tell me this. I certainly believe this. And if so, a submissive man writing about his struggles can help to facilitate the positive growth of submissive men. In other words, writing books about uh, being one to help other men out there who are lost and don't have any submissive men in their life to turn to for guidance or role models. There's a lot of, like when young men are submissive, like when I was discovering myself as a submissive man, I really didn't have a whole lot of other men to look up to or to emulate or to figure out. I was like, okay, well, how am I supposed to be who I am? Where am I supposed to take this? Because in the culture, you look at these action movies, these male role models can often be very violent and destructive, and not just destructive towards other people, but towards themselves. And so I kept thinking in my head, well, who is my role model? And I realized at some point that there is no role model. I don't. There is no role model for me personally. I don't. Generally speaking, there are not submissive men in movies that are openly submissive to women. You probably have to comb through thousands of videos before you found some kind of DVD or something about that. Most of the time, the people who get front center attention are the action stars, the people who are playing blockbuster roles, and so on and so forth. These aren't, and I'm not saying that submissive men can't learn from these individuals. I just think that having more literature, what would have really helped me when I was trying to discover who I am was if I had opened a book and read something like the title of the book could be something as simple as "It's okay to be a submissive man." Um, there's nothing wrong with it. In other words, to just try to normalize the idea and explain that this is just a part of life. That you're not weird, you're not going crazy, you're not just some kind of pervert. This is like an actual aspect of your personality. This is who you are. And to also debunk some myths. So sort of like clearing up the cobwebs in a person's brain. They're trying to sift through all these different personal struggles and problems. And I think that that's one way that you could definitely help them out. And this matters because if more men not only accept the fact that they're submissive, but embrace it, then you have part of the problem solved, which is all these people realizing that they don't need to suppress who they are anymore for the sake of the so-called society or majority, or they can just be themselves. But sometimes you need somebody to facilitate that, to encourage that. So, in other words, you need somebody to draw the fire, the opening fire of other people. In other words, somebody needs to stand up and be willing, not literally, but somebody needs to be willing to take the arrows, the bullets, so that other people who are reading this stuff don't have to. There has to be a man, and this can go. Same thing can go for dominant women as well, who are doing their own thing. There has to be individuals who are willing to take the hits for other people, so that other human beings can discover who they are, and they don't necessarily have to put themselves in the line of fire like that. Like every time I make one of these videos, on some level, in some way, I really do feel like I am putting myself in the line of fire, but after many years of repression, I'd rather express myself than bottle it all up. I'd rather talk about these things. So the next one is organizing formal debates between Gynarchists to educate and inform their audience. Now, if you've ever seen a formal debate, in other words, there's no like cursing each other out or degrading each other. These are very polite, respectful ways of trying to explore different aspects of an issue within our community. And the reason for this is there's a certain level of theater involved in a formal debate. People are naturally interested in different perspectives. Debates do attract the attention of individuals for varying reasons. And if you can use the formal debate as a means to educate and inform people about topics related to Gynarchy or Gynarchic communities or gynocentric cultures, there's just something about two human beings in a room presenting opposing points of view and exploring each other's point of view through questions, through discussions, observations, there's just nothing else quite like it, because it's one thing to see it in text. It would be another thing to see two Gynarchists with radically different points of view engaging in a formal in a formal debate that is supposed to be, I don't like using the word intellectual, but it's supposed to be of a higher moral nature. In other words, your goal is you're doing this as a service to the community. You're not doing it necessarily uh, because you want to be the one who's right. You want to win. This is beyond such things. It's not about winning over the other person or being right. It's about exploring the thoughts and feelings that have already been brought up by other people, and maybe doing that from a different vantage point than them. Also, how does this work when it comes to bringing about, those communities? Well, if people start becoming educated and informed about that, and they start seeing people engaging in formal debates, that brings attention to those individuals. That also is like, it's like lighting the beacons of Minas Tirith, so to speak, like the Gynarchic beacons of Minas Tirith, where as soon as people start seeing a debate, they come to it because there's something about debating. Yeah, people will come to the debate. They'll be like, "What? What's going on here?" And then they'll see it, and then they'll start talking about that, and then they might start inspiring other thoughts. It might start encouraging them to think about other things. And so and that's part of how you add to the culture. If people feel like there's a way that they can participate, they can feel like they're part of something greater than themselves, and there's an active kind of verbal expression of that. That's different from what most Gynarchists do. Most Gynarchists resign themselves, unfortunately, for one reason or another. Maybe they're concerned, maybe they're worried, maybe they don't want to be unemployed, whatever. They will talk in discords. They will post something on Reddit, or they will. In other words, most of them are not willing to get on camera and show themselves visually doing things like verbally expressing this. But the more you show that, okay, no one's coming after you, you don't have to feel afraid, it's okay to express yourself, then that part of the culture that manifests itself into this minute starts to open up. And then other people come in, they're like, "Oh, that's great. That's really cool. I want to ask this debater some questions, some thoughts," and it gets you thinking. And the more people start thinking and feeling about it, the more you build and enrich that gynocentric culture. So there was a topic as an example for something that you could have done. I remember I ran into an individual who sold FLR books and was expressing them. And I had kind of a debate topic I could have done, which is, should Gynarchists try to market their beliefs about female-led relationships or Gynarchy or whatever? Should they be marketing those female-led relationships to teenage boys? In other words, people under the age of 18. Now, the person who wrote the books said no, and I think that's very, very fascinating. And then you've got other people who are like, "Yeah, I don't really see the problem." So it's kind of a question of, what are the reasons, why not? What are the reasons for? Could you explore that topic? Is it because Gynarchy and FLRs are often fetishized within a sexual context? And I think that right there is its own video, which will come later probably, which is, can Gynarchy escape its fetishistic context? And I'll definitely go into that more later. But this is just one kind of debate topic that you could bring up and use in order to engage in a formal debate. Of course, both of the debaters are going to have to take notes. They're going to have to focus on what the other person is saying. So it does require a lot of effort to engage in a formal debate. Now, I think that's about all for now. If you have any other gynocentric cultural ideas, in other words, ways to bring people together, to talk about things, to explore different topics, please feel free to share them in the comments below. Thank you for your time. I've got to get back to chewing chores. I hope everyone has a blessed day. Please take care out there. It can be a crazy world.